I'm Heather Smith and welcome to Cloud Stories, a podcast exploring accounting. Today I'm sharing with you a panel discussion on the topic How to Kickstart the Digitalization of Your Practice in 2021. This session was produced by the Accounting and Finance Show as part of the Digital Practice Summit Asia 2021. Our expert panellists were all based in Singapore and all at different stages of their modernisation journey. I think it's really useful for us to hear different insights and experiences to help us on our own journey. The session initially starts with an introduction from Laura Bynes, Project Director at Terrapin, the conference organisers. She then hands over to me as host, so I won't talk too much about it now, as I think our joint introductions are quite comprehensive and will explain what the session is going to be about. Terrapin is a global events company promoting innovation and technology. I encourage you to Google them and register for any upcoming events that may be of interest to you. As many are currently running virtually, you have the opportunity to attend their global events. I also encourage you to stay up to date with the AccountTech Modern Practice News by signing up to my newsletter at heathersmithau.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to this next panel discussion in the Practice Management channel. The advert just shown was brought to you by our title sponsors Xero. So if you haven't already, please do make sure to pay the team a visit there at the Xero booth, which you'll find linked in the main menu on your screen. So back to this panel session. I hope that you've had a chance to grab some lunch. Coming up, we have a fantastic discussion for you on how to kickstart your digitalization in 2021. I'll be handing over to our moderator, Heather Smith. Heather runs Anita Consulting under the title of Hype Girl for Accounting Apps, and with a number of speaking gigs around the world just this week, she's an absolute pro when it comes to moderating sessions like this. And she'll be joined by the leaders from the firms from Charles & Partners, Agere Advising and Accounting and Advisory, and Beaufort Tax Consultants. But I'll let Heather introduce you to each of those panelists properly in just a sec. Before I pass over to Heather, I'd just like to remind you that if you have any questions at all, please do submit them into the live discussion area on your screen. We'll also be running some live polls so that we can get to know you guys a little bit better, so please do watch out for those. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Heather to take things away.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that lovely introduction. And yes, I'm the moderator for today's session. Today we're discussing how to kickstart your digitalization of your practice in 2021. And during this session, you'll learn the tools required to implement digitalization, the skills to assist in digitalization, and tips and tricks for a smooth transition. So I encourage you to drop any questions you have, and towards the end of the session, we shall look to answer those questions that you have in the chat area. But while I'm speaking and while I'm introducing our fellow panelists, we're going to run some polls so we get to know you, the audience. So if you could take a moment, the polls should pop up on your screen. If you can take a moment to respond to those polls, we would be most appreciative, and we'll get to them in a few minutes. So let me tell you a little bit about me before I introduce my fellow panelists. So I'm based in Brisbane. I'm a fellow of the ACCA and the CAANZ, and following that advert, I should tell you that I'm also Xero certified, as they were mentioning Xero as the product there. I also write Xero for Dummies. I've run a digital practice, sole practitioner practice for over a decade, and my practice fits in my handbag, and I can be anywhere and my clients can be anywhere. I also host a podcast called Cloud Stories that explores the digital ecosystem. So that's enough about me. I'd like to invite our panelists here today to each of them to introduce themselves. Can I ask, can you share who you are, where you're from, and explain where you are on your practice digitalization journey? Feel free to name a few tools as well. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me here at the Digital Practice Summit 2021. My name is Mirah. I'm the founder of Beaufort Tax Consultants Private Limited, Singapore, and I have a team of 15 PACs now. Usually it's our digital transformation director, David Lim, who would be, joining as panelists of, of these events. But recently, he actually told me about this event and said, the topic is how to kickstart the digitalization of your practice. And I was like, wow, that's a great topic. I know a thing or two about that. And then he said, so do you want to join? And, I was like, without thinking, and I said, sure. So here I am, joining with my fellow practitioner, Charles and Elaine. So I have always been a proponent of digitalization. In fact, I actually built our own CMS, client management system, 12 years ago, way back before digitalization was even a sensible word in accounting industry. We are still in our practice digitalization journey, not because it has been a slow ride, but because we are continually finding digital solutions to adopt in our practice. So I don't think there will be a finish line to the journey. It's not an exhausting journey really. In fact, it is quite the opposite, because when a part of our practice is digitalized, it opens up to new opportunity for improvement in our workflows as well as processes, and dare I say, to a new business, ideas and opportunities too. Yeah. So currently, we are still using our in-house CMS, but in addition, we also use zero expense for our expense and mileage claim. We use HubDoc and recently XPM as well as Infotech HR app. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mirah.
Elaine, would you like to go next?
Thanks, Charles. Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine from Singapore and the founder of Agere Accounting. I'm happy to share my digitalization journey with all of you here today. So Agere, we are one of the first Zero Platinum partner. So in fact, for myself, I was Zero certified in early 2011. That was 10 years ago. When I started the firm years back, I started it as a fully digital firm. So back then, I searched and used the best of breed cloud applications available at that time, both for my firm as well as for my clients. I'm a great fan of Zero and their open API that allows other cloud applications to be integrated to their accounting platform. So in fact, today they have like 1,000 cloud apps in their marketplace. So we use a range of Zero or rather cloud applications from Zero for accounting, XPM for practice management, Talenox for payroll, HubSpot for our CRM, DEX for invoice automation, Bob for the document management system, and many more. So over the years, I'm continuously searching and exploring new technology, new features and applications for the practice. So this enables us not only to deliver existing services more effectively and efficiently, but also to develop new services to bring to our clients. So to me, digitalization is not a destination where you stop after a certain point, but a continuous journey to always think out of the box and change constantly.
Thank you, Elaine.
Hi. So I guess I'm last. Hi, everyone. My name is Charles from Singapore. I run Charles & Partners. This has been 8 years since I started my own practice. I guess for me, digitization is quite interesting because I did envision, like Elaine, to start a digital practice the moment I began. But interestingly, just a couple of years back, I had an opportunity to actually take over an existing practitioner's practice as well. And I guess the interesting thing for us is they were totally non-digitized. So I'm very happy to share with you some of my experiences on the transformation that I did in the past 4 years with the firm that I took over, in terms of how the various challenges and really how to nudge not just the practitioner to change, but even the clients, who are not really used to such modes of communication. how we approach them and how we convince them, to be a part of our digitization practice. So in terms of apps-wise, Xero, definitely. I think Xero has been very aggressive in terms of their personal, not just their personal development in terms of an accounting app, but also in terms of the APIs with a lot of other app marketplace. I think this is something that I really appreciate about them. Internally, I think we use Xero for accounting work. I do use XPM, as Mirah has mentioned just now, for my practice management. Yeah, in terms of HR, I go with a small Singapore local firm called Payboy. Not recommended that you search on Google because something more interesting will come up. But nonetheless, it's still a very interesting app that we use. Of course, for our clients, we do seek out digitization methods for them as well. And that really depends on the industry of the client. So we have clients from construction, F&B, and we do want to offer them certain technology solutions that they themselves can build within their own business operations to integrate with us when we're doing the accounting work for them. Yep. Oh, maybe a shout out for Syntax. Yeah, for tax management, tax computation software. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charles, and thank you everyone for your introductions. I think that was a wealth of insight and experience just in those few minutes, and I'm sure people were jotting down all the solutions that you were mentioning. So what I'd like to do is just summarize the polls that have come through. So we know who the audience are, and you as audience know who's attending. So in terms of how many of you are practice owners, 1/3 of you are practice owners, while 2/3 of you aren't. So that maybe you're working in the practice or you've joined out of interest of understanding what goes on in a practice. In terms of how far along are you on your digitalization journey, 25% have not started, so I think they're coming from a more traditional base. 30% are 6 months into it, 20% are 1 year into it, and 25% are 2 to 5, probably 2 to 5 or longer than that years into it. Okay, so that's really interesting. So we've got a real cross-section of people on their journey here. And where are people joining us from? So we have 35% of people, attendees are joining us from Singapore, 5% from Malaysia, 10% from Indonesia, 20% from the Philippines, and 30% other areas. So thank you, everyone who is joining us. That's quite a lovely spread there. So what I'd like to come back and ask you, now you have touched on it, but I would like to explore it a bit further. What are you trying to achieve by digitalizing your practice? And what benefits are you realizing? Now, you have touched on this a bit, but I'd be interested to explore this. And I do draw out that you were always saying there's no finish line. It's a continuous journey. So why are you doing this? What are the benefits you're achieving by doing this? And I'm letting anyone jump in who'd like to respond.
Hey, hi, Heather.
Go ahead, Elaine. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Yeah, so probably I'll start the ball rolling. So when I started my practice, it was from a need to be different from the other traditional accounting practices, to create a niche for myself. So adopting digitalization for me back then was not just to improve efficiency, cut costs, or so that we can work remotely. It is all that. But more importantly, it became my business model. Like I would only take in clients that are willing to implement my fully digital accounting model. I spend time onboarding them, training them to use the apps, to scan their documents to us because we wouldn't collect hard copy files from them or perform on-site accounting. So the benefits I've realized, other than cost reduction and efficiency, because those are obvious benefits, it is also branding, as well as scalability, allowing us to grow faster with less resources.
I love that you say it's part of your branding. Now, Charles, did you want to add something to that?
Sure. I think maybe a quick sharing from me. In terms of why I want to do digitization, I come from 2 points. The first one is in terms of the way we want to do our accounting work. I think traditionally the practice, or rather traditionally the industry has very much been focused on compliance matters or maybe even advisory matters. I feel like given the aid of technology, it puts us in a much better position to push ourselves up the value chain and to give even financial management kind of a services to our clients. And I think this is very important because this is one way I see how our industry evolving. A lot of technocrats will tell me, "Oh, Giles, why are you doing accounting? In a few years, accountants will all be gone." Well, I disagree, and I disagree quite strongly because who checks your financial statements? In fact, who will advise you on how to take the next step forward in terms of budgeting? I think that's something that we as accountants, it frees our time to give this much more value-adding stuff to our clients. And that is very important for me. The second thing I want to bring up, it's also on the side as an employer. I think millennials, Gen Z, are coming into the workforce and telling them to sit down after 5 years, 4 years of higher education and to tell them, you do data entry. I'm not too sure how long you're going to last in the labor market. So I discovered, personally, I do some education with Singapore Management University. And I think one of the key things that I really appreciate about education system nowadays is that they go really far to give all those tools necessary for the young accountants that are coming out. However, I think if we're still stuck in a more traditional standpoint of what accounting work is, then we're truly not really unlocking the potential of the value adds that our employees can give to us. So allowing some of those like data entry work, allowing some of those cognitive, repetitive work to be outsourced to the machines and to the technology, it really helps us to better engage our employees as well. Yeah, that'll be something for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Charles.
Yeah, so, from Elaine sharing and Charles sharing, you guys are way ahead of me. But that's okay. What I'm going to share is it could be valuable for that 25% that audience who are still whether early in their journey or maybe thinking into jumping or into kickstart the digitalization journey. So our first act of digitalization was actually the invoicing. Of course, using our own system back then. And from that simple act itself, we reap a lot of benefits, like, of course, timeliness of the invoice, saving paper and postage, and, of course, staff costs from folding them and, bringing them to post box. And also, omission of invoice was no longer our issue back then. And, by keeping all this not in physical form, of course, you will save some real estate costs, right? And as our firm grows, there is a pressing need for accessibility of documents and clearly defined processes by the team. And only automation and digitalization can fill this need. What started off as a cost-cutting measure is now moving into a necessity in order for us to as mentioned by Elaine, to scale our practice, right? And more so right now when remote working arrangement has become part of our new normal, right? So back in 2019, that was right before the COVID, we started scanning all our physical documents, PACs and secretarial files, and saving them to our server. And this took a while to do because, especially for the secretarial files, I have to read up on the legitimacy of digitized documents to ensure that we are covered. And then we have to streamline the file naming conventions because, if left unattended, everybody will have their own file naming processes. And then, of course, we have to scan heaps of these documents and saving it in date sequence. And our compliance officer will have to step in to verify that these documents are in server are in order. And we're still doing it even after 2 years. Yeah. So it is a time-consuming exercise, but a critical one if we want to have a digital practice. So yeah, now just want to mention about Xero. Xero has got an excellent invoicing module. Okay, not only for your job-based invoicing, but also for retainers, because they have this repeating function that you can use for your annual or quarterly retainer invoices. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Mirah. And thank you everyone for sharing there. Now, I would be interested to know, how do you go about assessing your technology solution and what will be the right fit for your practice? So we've actually named a lot of solutions, which I think will make people very happy. But how do you go about assessing them? And to draw in one of the questions that we've had from the audience, do you look, and I kind of feel I know the answer here anyway, but do you look for a complete solution that does everything? Or do you look for individual modules that you're going to plug together, and the technical term for that is do they have an open API that you're able to connect the data with? So if you could talk to that, that would be great.
Perhaps let me start first, again, addressing to the that 25%. I'm sure it's going to be relevant to them. Well, one thing for sure is I'm excited that there are so many affordable solutions that practice owners can access to digitize their practices. Now, we have a digital transformation director on board who has keen eyes for good apps. He would give me bite-sized features of these apps and get me excited on them. But beyond the excitement, the app has to pass our 3 key checklists: price point, functions, and its fit to our current way of doing things. And if it doesn't fit, will that pose a radical change? And will that work better for the team? Yeah, so that's how we actually access solutions.
Thank you.
I'll add on a little bit more from how I will assess the different solutions. I think for me, the key thing you want to identify is what exactly is the problem that you're solving, and what exactly is this technology that's bringing to you that is solving. So my assessment would put the price point last, because I want to find the solution first. And the truth is, if the solution is valuable to me, then honestly, we should rethink our own budgeting in terms of certain projects. So the way I look out for certain matters would be exactly what am I trying to solve, and how the technology assists me in solving. Maybe one key thing you may want to take note, because let's say you're a practice. Different people in the practice will do kind of different things depending on how you structure the practice. You may want to be quite clear of the segregation of duties and roles, because this is going to help you understand to each person how many softwares they may necessarily need to know for them. That will lead me to the answer to the second question, right? Which is, do you get one ERP or do we get like multiple things? Definitely multiple. Because from where I started in 2014, when you're trying to get one entire ERP system, 60% of the functions some people will love, and the other 40% people will curse and swear, and it costs you a lot of money. So because there's no like motivation to change, because it's really costing so much, and 60% of the work is done, you're stuck with this 40% that you really hate. I think technology has evolved to the SaaS model, and a lot of times we're looking for integration between multiple solutions. But essentially what we want to look for is that we want to make sure 100% of different functions have 100% satisfaction in the tools they're using. That means that we, instead of being beholden to one single solution, we have multiple in its own aspect competing with other service providers, right, to give you the best result and solution. As such, that said, it's easy for you when you're doing the segregation of duties for your different teams to think about this person, what exactly does he or she needs to do, and then focus on training on this one or two solutions that you're using, the technical solutions that you're using, and whatever that you cannot bridge in terms of API, then I would say you can look to operationalizing this in your standard operating procedures, or maybe having someone to stand in to monitor this kind of data transfers between softwares. That would be from my perspective.
Yeah, I love that. Looking for as much automation as possible within solutions. Did you have anything that you wanted to mention there, Elaine?
Yes, I do want to weigh in a little bit. I think Mirah and Charles have mentioned most part of it. So for my point of view is that my preference is also not to go with a full suite of an ERP, but to look for individual solutions. As Charles mentioned, that individual solutions, you're able to pick the best of breed apps that is suitable to your needs, right? And at the same time, that gives us a lot of flexibility as well. So because as businesses grows, even whether it's our practice or clients' businesses, you may have different needs at different stages of the practice. So with different needs, you may require different solutions, and at that point in time, you can then say that this particular app or this feature may not be sufficient or adequate for you anymore, and you have the flexibility of just maybe changing a CRM to another CRM that better suits your needs without having to change the entire ERP system. So that's my take on that.
Absolutely. It's almost like Lego blocks. If something doesn't fit, you unplug it and then plug in something bigger or has a different feature set. So I typically much prefer to be able to build a stack around things, and anything that I can get to automate, I will try and build a business case study for it. So I love anything that will automate and make my life easier. I'm interested to know how you go about communicating with and engaging your team to go on the digitalization journey with you. Have you faced any resistance with your team on the digitalization journey?
Well, to me, this is actually easy because our team is made up of mostly millennials. So to them, digitalization is not a foreign language. They are always ready for the next new app in our office. That said, I still have to pay attention to the more senior staff who take a little longer to adapt, but they will get there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mirah.
So when it comes to digitalization process itself, then I usually would actually rope in 2 people from the team, and I give equal chance if possible. And they will just check out the app and then learn from YouTube and read up on the learning resources, and then they'll come back to me with the app. Okay, and then I'll just oversee. I make executive decisions on whether to adopt and how to adopt. And and then these selected staff would actually take on the role of champion and change agent throughout the journey. Yeah, for the team.
Yeah. Excellent.
So on this point,
Mirah.
I have something interesting to share. So as mentioned previously, we took over a traditional practice that has been around for 25 years. So twice as old as me. Just kidding. Anyway, so along with this practice came along some practitioners. I do have to say I admire them for their experience and their expertise. But definitely when it comes to changing their processes, definitely when it comes to changing their ways of doing things, they are extremely resistant to this. I think we shouldn't discount them and say that, they are totally non-applicable or not relevant to this digital economy anymore. But instead, I'll still go back to the drawing board and really to list out what exactly are their daily roles and responsibilities. Because most of these senior staff, they are more on the supervisory role and on the reviewer's role. Yeah, and one of the key things, I think the limitations for technology is that you don't want to get AI to review things for you. AI can prepare the things, but you want the human to review this for you. So as long as I can do this segregation of duties, then my persuasion to these people is like, hey guys, you still got to learn some new things, right? I'm not telling you to change totally, but instead of getting this report from a human now, you're going to get it from, an AI, So that's, you're trying to make this transition as gentle as possible, and while affirming that their value to the firm is still there. And I think this will help a lot in terms of the transition, and will help you retain as much expertise as you have, even with your previous staff, which might seem a bit resistant to change. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be unlocked once you give them some kind of way out in this matter.
Yeah, I think that's really valid, Charles. And I also think that the more senior staff potentially are also attracting the more senior clients as well. And the clients are very sticky to them as well. So you want it to work out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So for me, my staff are all millennials, so very young. So there's no problem going with digitalization. I think the challenges come when we try to roll out new apps or new features in the existing apps and want them to make use of it. So we also appoint champions to go to study these new features to see whether it is suitable for the firm, right? And typically they'll come back will say that this new feature or this new app may satisfy what 80% or 70% of what we want to do, but it's not 100%. Right, and that maybe we should wait for another app or solution that can satisfy 100% of what we want to do. But to me, it's that if it can satisfy say 80%, I think that's good enough, because rather than not implementing it and not even reaping the 80% of the rewards, to delay to wait to 100%, we do it today and try to fill the gaps with other workaround solutions and other process change or anything that we can do so that we can reap the benefits now rather than later.
Yeah. And I think to that, if it's only doing 80%, if you can put a business case study back to the app to feedback, we would really like this feature and functionality, and this is why, and explain it to them. Sometimes they'll actually be very keen to build that out once they understand it, because it will keep more clients with them and it will keep people sticky with them. So sometimes working with these smaller solutions that, like as you mentioned, some of the solutions you're working with are based very locally to you. They're keen and they can build it out fast. So talk with them. It's a community we're working within. So I'm interested to know what resources or external support do you turn to support your digitalization journey? Of course, the Digital Practice Summit right here is one of them. But what else do you turn to?
I think I'll go first. Okay. So I have to say it's a lot of trial and error. So I guess at my firm, okay, I'll just say it outright. I'm the millennial in my firm. So I'm the guy doing the change champion, trying to convince the rest of my team to get on board. I think one of the key things we want to think of when it comes to external resources is you want to see how the industry is changing in terms of the processes. Yeah, a lot of times people are stuck in the old way of doing things. And when the tech has really superseded what is required previously, then there is a necessary way for us to change. I mean, there's a necessary change that we have to do to the different processes. Let me give you guys one example. So Xero has the bank reconciliation function, which I think my fellow panelists and Heather, you agree, it's just ridiculous, right? It's out of this world. The AI, the green thing, they just let me click OK. That's just brilliant. Now, how has this changed from the previous way of doing bank reconciliation? Printing out a bank statement, looking at it line by line, ticking it off. Now, that's a huge change, correct? That's a huge change in terms of the processes, in terms of how you should think about where you're getting your information from. And in fact, with this bank reconciliation function, I may even make this statement to say like payment vouchers, receipt vouchers are obsolete, because every single transaction line item is directly linked to the bank transaction. So these are some of the things that technology right now can offer to us. And as practitioners, I feel that we need to start thinking about what is technology trying to say to us, right? What is technology trying to say to us in terms of like, hey, you guys no longer have to do this anymore. You guys can make this automated. But as practitioners, I feel like we need to take it with a pinch of salt, because with every convenience that the practitioners, the technology people offer to us, we need to assess in terms of, it is beyond just convenience for us, right? It is a security, it is accuracy, and definitely sometimes professional assurance on that as well. So my external journey, the external resources that I went for, I talked to a lot of different technology providers. So be it Xero, and if you don't mind, QuickBooks. I also talked to the different HR providers. I talked to the different CRM providers, even the different document management providers, and to understand what exactly are they trying to do with their processes. As what Heather mentioned just now, they are very open in discussion, and I try my best to understand from their standpoint what they're trying to do, and I take it, whatever that's applicable for us, and kind of package it so that I can keep like security, I can keep assurance and all those other things that us practitioners we value, and to piece together some technology solution that I can use for my firm. Yeah. So talk to people. Yes.
Talk to people. Excellent. Thank you, Charles. Was there any other resources that other people turned to?
Well, before I share my
your secret resources.
Not really secret, but I just want to share like a sideway story. I have a client who has been resistant to change over to Xero, and finally 2 years after pursuing him, his other accounting software crashed. So I said, you should actually consider Xero. So, which he did. Okay, long story short, he did. And even that, I have to please try this. So anyway, long story short, he did. And 2 months into Xero, he said, hey, Mirah, maybe I should change my bank account now. Because, he's using another bank account that doesn't do direct feed with Xero. So I thought that was funny, from being resistant to now trying to change his bank account, his company bank account, so that it would connect to Xero. So, okay, on the support, I think I should actually give credits to our Singapore government. Yeah, in line with their Smart Nation vision. They have been very supportive by, to businesses, even to practices, like ours, by giving grants and incentives. Of course, as you know, I think, Charles and Elaine would also agree that there was this generous productivity and innovation credit scheme, which ended in 2018. And then we also tapped into government grant to, the PSG grant for our HR and people app. Laptops, even there is even a grant for laptops. And the latest that we signed up for was a grant for Zoom subscription. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, thank you, Singapore government. But after that, we managed our digitalization journey ourselves, and I think that's not too taxing, because the cost of these apps are very affordable. We don't really spend a lot on digitalization, so for all the 25% who are watching, it's not that expensive, except for the initial setup and the upgrades for a robust network and security system in our firm, which is still the biggest ticket item in our firm. Yeah.
Thank you, Mirah.
Right. I'd also like to add on that vendors is also a good source of support other than them sharing how to improve your processes, like what Charles mentioned. They also do provide a lot of training or even selling of their features to our staff
Who was
internally.
that? Who was that?
I said vendors.
Oh, vendors. Okay, sorry.
Yes, software vendors is a good source of support as well because they can also help to train the staff or even promote or sell the features to the staff. And some of them, like Xero, they provide industry playbooks on how to implement, certain apps or suite of apps to different industries. So they do help a lot, and it's good to tap on them.
Thank you.
I'll still
Thank
say,
you for that.
take it with a pinch of salt because you want them to fight amongst themselves, you see. So don't just take it from one vendor. Get the opinions from a lot of different vendors in the same area.
Yes. In fact, we do QuickBooks Online as well.
Can we say that?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'd like to, and we have had some questions from the audience, and one of the questions, I'm just going to rephrase a bit. The question is asking, what tech stack would you recommend for a new practitioner? So can I get you just to name 2 solutions that if you were to start over again and you were budget conscious, what technology solutions would you look to? Just name 2, and then that gives them something to have a look at.
So I think Xero for accounting software. And with Xero, it would extend a practice management software called XPM. I'll say here, not the best, but it's free. So very cost efficient.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else? Any other 2 solutions you'd like to mention, Mirah or Elaine?
Well, the zero expense would be the third one, which is very useful because it captures the receipts, the staff claims efficiently, and you can straight away approve from your handphone, right? So that would be very efficient for practitioners. Mm-hmm.
Right. For me, it will be Xero Practice Manager and Xero Expense Claims. To me, is the same software because it's part of Xero. The other software that I would recommend will be for a payroll software. That would be Telenox because it is very, very simple to use. And you can also manage your leave as well. You can approve your leave online from your mobile. So that makes managing the practice really much simpler, and you can use it for your clients as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. One of the questions was, what's the key difference between XPM and Workflow Max? I wonder if one of you knows that, and which one is better for practitioners. So I think it is XPM.
Yeah. So interestingly, I asked the Xero, I think there was a person talking to me from Xero, and he said Workflow Max used to be a project management system. Yeah. So how is this different from a practice management system? Is that in a practice, we have recurring jobs. I think just now Mirah mentioned, like, you want the system to automatically generate invoices for you, for your retainers. So in the same way, the practice manager is able to generate recurring jobs for your different cases. For example, you finish this financial year, you automatically roll over to the next financial year for you to track. So I think these are some of the key differences, although in my experience, I didn't really do quite a bit of a study in terms of the difference. They look to me the same, but somehow they're named differently. But Workflow Max, I think, is now XPM for good. I'm not too sure how this thing goes.
So following on from that question, if someone has asked they want to implement Xero Practice Manager. So sorry for people listening in. It sounds like we're doing a real Xero show today, but this is actually
they're good.
The attendees. Yeah. I want to implement Xero Practice Manager. Are there any tips or advice our panelists can share? So do you have any advice on implementing Xero Practice Manager?
Interesting. Okay. My recent experience would be really useful for that questionnaire. We implemented Xero XPM just a month ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
still very fresh. Yeah. So for a long time, I had, wanted to do it. So every year end, because at year end our practice has a long break, right? So every year end I would actually spend that long break trying to figure out XPM. I've been warned about XPM. It's a different beast. And then I tried again. So for 2 years, I was looking into it, but never get down to doing it, to implementing it. Then this remote, remote work arrangement really compelled me to actually seriously look into it. And so I roped in my two of my staff, and they started looking into it. And we together, long story short, together we spent about 300 hours, together into looking into it. And finally we figure out, and then we have to migrate, our client data, our service codes, and then we have to, because we are already using Xero, right? So we have all those in place. It doesn't fit like a glove. So we have to tweak, and then we have to trial and error, and finally we got it. So it can be quite challenging, but I think it's rewarding at the end of the day when you see, oh, okay, it's not that difficult after all.
If you don't mind, I can time it. Yeah, for let's say a systematic implementation of XPM. Yeah. So we started XPM utilization 2 years ago. And I think what I can share with you guys is before even implementing XPM, there are some things you should take note. Firstly, your practice has to be very clear in terms of each engagement and the different task that's involved in each individual engagement. So as much as possible, you want to have a template for these things. Yeah, so that's number one. The second one is to extract the most value, right, is that your practice has a tradition of charging time charging, because it's very important. This helps you with the profitability of each individual work that you're doing. And lastly, I'm assuming your practice has some form of database of all your different clients. So once all these three things is done, I say most of the time, I'm not too sure whether Mirah will agree, but most of the time we spend up in doing the recurring jobs. Yeah, the definition of the recurring jobs is extremely important because the logic on how it runs, especially for some of the cases that starts only after the financial year end, and some that starts at the start of the financial year. So you want to pay attention to that and map out some form of logic to set up this. And once you can templatize it, trust me, you just force your people to charge their time on the task and the jobs on XPM. And I can promise you that the system will do the rest. Not 100% perfect, but it will do the heavy lifting for you. Yep. Yeah. Currently, I say we are exploring a little bit more on report generation. And we have been managed to, we are able to transform ourselves into less of a time-based practice and more of a task-based practice. So essentially, because we're all remotely working, I tell them, guys, there's no 8 to 5, right? Here's the task list, go and finish it. We can assign those different tasks, right? And all those is possible because we have a framework in terms of templatization of the engagements, that we can define very clearly what the to-do is. Yeah, so I think this is something that you may want to implement before even jumping into XPM. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Sorry, just 1 minute here. So in addition to what Mirah and Charles have mentioned, I think another area that I would like to warn everybody that implements XPM is that please make sure that the staff closes off the jobs after they finish it, because or else you'll see thousands of jobs in the system. Because I've implemented Workflow Max before Workflow Max was acquired by Xero since 10 years ago. And over the years, every now and then you'll have to do a cleanup of the system because you have people not closing off jobs, and you have thousands of open jobs in there, and things starts getting a little bit messy. So you probably want to implement or appoint a champion to make sure these things are cleaned up every now and then.
So training and processes.
Yeah, for us, there is this, what you call this, director, I think director and manager. So for us, the manager would be actually the master PIC, master person in charge, staff in charge. So, they would want to declutter their dashboard. So they would actually close off the job once they already filed the annual return. So they'll do it themselves.
Maybe one suggestion that I have, how I do it, I actually appointed a company whip. So a person specifically whose one of the job scope is to bug people when they have overdue deadlines. Very efficient. Yeah. I don't care whether you have done it or you haven't checked it off. Well, it appeared on my report, so what are you going to do, right? So very effective.
It sounds like we could actually have a whole webinar session on Workflow Max, maybe on XPM. Maybe we'll have to get Xero in to sponsor another session and extend it. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and I'd like to sort of wrap up the panel discussion with what's one practical tip you wish you knew at the start of the journey, and also how can people who are listening in get in touch with you?
Elaine, perhaps?
First.
Yeah.
Okay, so it will be, don't just take your current processes and digitalize it. So take this opportunity to reimagine and redesign your processes, right? It'll be fun to take a cue from science fiction movies, I'm serious, and dream how an accounting firm should look like. Then you explore the technologies of how to make your dream a reality.
This is really cool.
I definitely would like to keep in touch with Elaine because she's way ahead of our firm. Yeah. Well, for me, I think it's as I shared earlier with my journey with XPM, I think I would actually encourage practitioners to get the team involved, at least 2 or 3 staff into the journey. Rotate them if you have bigger practice, but just share with them what you want to achieve, and just give them your vision, and you'll be surprised how excited they can be, and they are really smart, these millennials, and it is a welcome disruption to their daily task. Yeah, so that's my tip for the listeners.
Thank you.
I think one takeaway from me would be we have to understand that tech is tech. Right? Tech is, as much as they tell them it's alive, but it's just a bunch of code that's dead. But what's alive is humans, right? So we want to be extremely careful when we're implementing technology to say that it's not a one-size-fits-all anymore. Right? This more or less is the traditional understanding. I think to encourage you guys, you don't have to be the technology expert to do any kind of digitization. I'll say as practice owners, you just have to be operational experts. Right? If you know how the processes are to run, technology is just a tool that you enable yourself to make better, more efficient processes. It's the same as Excel. Excel is dead, but I believe a lot of us here can do magic with Excel, right? So do not be too intimidated by all these jargons out there, because at the end, technology is just here to solve a certain problem. And I'm pretty sure you understand this problem because you know the process as a practice owner. And I think we're supposed to go one round on how to contact us. I'll just go quick one. Most ill-prepared, I only have my name. You can search me on Google and you probably will find me. Okay, I'll hand it over to Elaine.
Well, let me take it over. I'll take it over. So I need to wrap up because we're running out of time. It has been it's completely fine. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I think it could have gone on for a lot longer. So I'd like to thank our guest panelists, Elaine Lim, Mirah Agus, and Charles Chen, and everyone at the Digital Practice Summit Asia 2021, with special mention to Laura Binns and Laura Pickard, who assisted in the development and production of this session. I'd like to encourage everyone to connect with my fellow speakers and I in the Conference Hub and on LinkedIn, and let us know where you are on your journey. Thank you for attending today's webinar presented by the Accounting and Finance Show as part of the Digital Practice Summit Asia 2021. Today's topic was how to kickstart the digitalization of your practice in 2021. I'm Heather Smith and I've been your moderator for today's session. I hope you enjoyed listening to that discussion on how to kickstart the digitalization of your practice in 2021, produced by the Accounting and Finance Show as part of the Digital Practice Summit Asia 2021. A few of the highlights of the session for me included the Singaporean government has provided a number of incentives to digitalise, including paying for Zoom subscriptions. Starting a digital practice cuts costs, attracts the right type of clients, brands their firms and enables them to be different. There's no finish line. It's a continuous journey. The importance of building and maintaining relationships with vendors. If they don't offer a feature, build a case study and explain why they should. Also, notably, all panellists were using Xero and XPM in their practices, though they did have clients on other solutions. And they all look to a multitude of factors when choosing a solution, including does it fit with their current process, will implementation cause friction, what are the costs, and what will the time savings be. You've been listening to the Cloud Stories podcast. I encourage you to subscribe and leave a 5-star review so other people can find this podcast. That's really helpful for me if you can do that. Stay up to date with the curated content I'm sharing by signing up to the Accounttech newsletter available at heathersmithau.com.